want to see who the real soldiers for Karen Huger is, because I certainly don't want any fake bitches around me.
Hello, friends. This is the day that we've been waiting for. This is the new season of The Real Housewives of Potomac. It is season 9, episode 1. And I say the day we've been waiting for because this is one of the first shows that I reviewed, if I don't mistake. Whatever. We've been waiting for this. The thing is, obviously, we've had a really big cast shakeup on this show, and so I want to see what it's giving. Somebody did, I don't remember if it was an interview, I really just cannot remember, but somebody was saying basically, and I think it was somebody from the cast, but you need to watch this season from a fresh viewpoint, I guess. There's a new cast, so like be able to go in and see everybody and give them just a new start. Just see. So I felt like that was some good advice, and that's just kind of what I was kind of, that's the intention that I was going in with. So we start the episode. Obviously, we got this clip. I did watch this clip because I was, I don't really like the teaser clips, but I watched it because I was just curious to know what the heck was going on, and I was excited to see the show. So we start off the show with Karen. They do this interesting reenactment of her accident, and for some reason it includes a deer. Obviously deer do play a big part, especially in areas like that with car accidents, but a deer didn't have anything to do with her accident, so that was interesting. I don't know, they do that. And then even when she's in the car with Giselle, I've kind of jumped all the way through, but she's in the car with Giselle on their way to breakfast or whatever the heck, there's another deer that kind of like jarts across the road. So I don't know. So anywho, when they're in the car, I did clock even before, like, okay, I'm watching the episode and I see the dynamic of Giselle and Karen, filming with each other, and of course they're supposed to be getting along. My only concern there is I hope this is not overproduced, and I hope this isn't like a plot and a ploy and a scheme set up by Todd to come to us with the bullshit, because obviously Giselle has, made it pretty obvious that she's a villain. So, I'm watching it. I'm going to see how genuine it is. I did clock, she was making little jokes like, I'm picking up, Miss Karen, blah, 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 whatever. I'm driving her. I'm going to make sure she's safe. Okay, fine, whatever. And then when they're on the way, she's asking, do you mind, Karen, if I drive past the scene of the accident? That was a weird question to me, but okay, fine, whatever. Karen kind of let that go, and she's just like, let's just not. They get to the restaurant, and they talk about it a bit, which I guess I can appreciate because they're confronting it, and I guess it does make sense to confront it with somebody you are friendly with as opposed to feeling attacked. So fine, let's get it out. But I found it to be enjoyable that when Giselle was asking about it, just kind of being Giselle is how it felt. And she's like, well, when are the court dates and what have you done so far? And Karen's point blank just like, well, girl, you can read. Like, it's all over the press. You're asking me because, you consume it just like anybody else does. And so then you're coming to me for the information. And you're Giselle Bryant, so I know how messy you are. So, girl, you know how to read. Like, go figure it out. But I wasn't buying, and I don't know, but what I wasn't buying was, Karen being a professional and doing the housewives thing where she's like, I can't talk about it too much because it is a legal thing. Is it a DUI or is it not? Were you driving drunk or were you not? Were you driving intoxicated or were you not? Right? So I don't know. We're waiting to be adjudicated, as were her words. But she talked about it a little bit more on Watch What Happens Live after. She was very emotional about it, so I don't want to imply that she was lying. I'm sure it probably is something there. I just don't understand. But she was saying, when the truth comes out, she's going to talk about it openly and freely. She's not looking to, deflect, which was interestingly a part of the episode title, if you guys did not clock that. So I thought that was interesting. But she's saying, she's going to be open about it once the case happens. So, and she did warn on Watch What Happens Live, like, we have to be careful what we say about people. But again, it's confusing to me because were you driving drunk or not? The other two interesting things were, I forgot that we met Karen essentially, and she was saying that she had a, I don't remember exactly what season, but she did say on the show that she had a DUI before. I think that kind of just went over my head. So I don't really know that I was clear that she, that this is her second DUI, so I thought that was interesting. And then she also talked about the fact that, and we've heard this already, that, she's dealing with grief and she's got issues with Ray. And I thought it was interesting that they replayed that clip from whatever season that was when Ray was asked, was he in love with her? And he said he thought he was, or something like that. So I'm interested to see where that goes. But further on, while I'm letting this early lunch scene be too much, even though it wasn't really much. But I'm setting the scene. I'm just kind of going through my notes. But they're having a conversation. Karen's birthday is coming up. I will have to say I'm kind of tired of talking about Karen's birthday every season. I understand that it's going to happen every year because that's how birthdays go. And you probably are going to be filming around the same time every year because that's typically how production goes. But I don't really think that we need to hear about Karen's birthday. And I don't think a celebration of Karen's birthday needs to be a staple in each and every season. But if we needed to open up the season, and obviously we have to talk about Karen's DUI and Karen's going to be the focus, then I guess it made sense. But let's write down some notes for next season and let's figure out something else. We're getting an introduction into the new girls already. Karen's got this friend named Viv, who I don't know if she's like a friend of. We're going to be around a lot, but interesting to hear about her. Cool chick. And then she knows Stacy through Viv. Stacy is the new housewife that's coming in. On some interviews, somebody described her as like a mix between Katie, who was on Potomac, and damn, I can't remember the other one, but like a quirky type of set. So I think that that'll be interesting. I do think that Karen looked great with the short hair and the blue dress in her confessional. I'm going to really get into it because I was just the first episode. And I was peeping a lot about the confessional looks. Mia, you looked a mess. But we'll get to you. And I will say it again. And speaking of Mia, while they're at the lunch, they do discuss the Mia and the ink situation. I didn't think too much into this until that final scene happened. And they were kind of like tag teaming on Mia. But I guess I should have thought about it a little bit more as far as foreshadowing. But they kind of are like, what's going on with the Mia and Ink thing. I have to be honest, I'm not interested in this, so I kind of blanked out that conversation, but it's an intro to it. So we move on. It kind of segues us into Mia's scene. She's, with her family. She's talking about the fact that she and Gordon are separated. I'm like, okay, I guess. They live in the same building, so now Gordon gets to see the kids on a daily basis. That's great, I guess. Gordon is they're basically having a conversation, and it was weird to me because it felt like, obviously we only see what they show us, but it felt like Mia was trying to assert the script there, like insert script. On Microsoft Word, it's like insert. It was giving insert what we practiced earlier. And so she very randomly pretty much says like, well, I feel like I put everything I had into our marriage, don't you? And Gordon's like, and she's like, you don't think so? He's like, well, I think that you gave the marriage a lot, but when it came down to it, you kind of missed a step, babe. And she's like, what step? And he's like, essentially the step where you leave your marriage officially before you go mess around with somebody else. And, I think that she walked her way right into that. I do like the fact that he could admit that he was mean to her, right? Like, take ownership in your part of it. And I think that that's probably generally where their relationship is, right? Like, it's ending. So you, at the very least, nobody has anything to lose. So take your ownership. So I think he has his ownership in that he realizes, hindsight is 2020. I was very mean to her. However, Mia still doesn't have the ownership to be like, oh, I was cheating on my husband with this guy that I messed around with in high school, and there is a paternity issue with my older child. Like, I don't think that she has the ownership for that, and I don't think that she's going to be ready for that. So I guess that that'll probably be a big thing this season. To her credit, though, and I don't necessarily remember, I wish that I did, because I do think that this is an interesting point, but I believe that it happened this way. To her credit, Gordon did bring up the whole paternity of her son thing, in him talking about, hey, you snuck around with this guy, and he even thinks that he's the father of Jeremiah. So he did bring it up. So to Mia's credit, I do understand her saying, you brought it up to the world. So now you got to finish it. Let's do this paternity test. But then to his credit and to the viewer's credit, and we did get this flashback, she said at the reunion last year that she was on IUI. So her whole thing was, scheduled out and planned. So she knew who Jeremiah's father was. So I think it's interesting that we're gonna make the paternity test her storyline this season. And I think it's even more interesting that this guy, even after she said that on the reunion last season, and even after Jeremiah is in double digits by now, maybe, or at least close, that now he wants to do a paternity test, right? Like, that's all weird. So I can understand Gordon also saying, no matter what, you should put an end to this, but also understand Mia saying, you started it, let's finish it. And, Jeremiah may see this one day and he may want to know, and he has a right to know. So I'm on the fence between those specific perspectives. As it pertains to Mia, just kind of like using her family for storyline as she did with her mom already, as she kind of did with Jacqueline and that whole thing. I don't agree with that, but we'll get into that. Immediately when Ashley got on the scene, I said, ugh. Like, I just wasn't feeling it. Her confessionals look a mess. I'm really just not a fan of Ashley. I'm very confused about her having a job this season on this show. She could have went and done something else, but she's back, and we'll talk about it. But we're still talking about this divorce. And I'm not clear on whether she filed or not. I'm not clear on where we are on it. I think it's weird that she used the excuse to say, well, I'm ready for the divorce because I want to date. And it's like, well, girl, you've been dating. And we even get some flashbacks to her. Obviously, they filmed some dates for this season that just weren't interesting enough because Ashley's not interesting. But we saw at least 2 or 3 dates that she went on that they filmed this season. So how are you talking about you want the divorce now because you want to date? You've been dating. Part of your storyline, what was that, last season or the season before, was that she was dating a guy from the Winter House or whatever the hell. So more of this. Obviously, something that puzzles us as a community on this Potomac show is the production of it all and whether it's going to be overly produced. So it's just something that I have to watch for. Yes, I'm trying to watch with fresh eyes, like I said, but I have to see how realistic this is. I say that to say, we get to Wendy's scene, and Wendy is talking about, she said, I resigned, past tense, from her job. And even in the scene, it's different to talk about it in the confessional. Maybe it gets a little weird because they do the confessionals afterwards, so they have to talk as if they're in the moment. But in the actual scene, in the moment, she's like, well, I'm bringing my stuff home from my office. I just resigned, da da da. But then she sits down to type an email of resignation. And I'm just not buying the authenticity of that. And I don't know that we needed that for the sake of of story. Because she could have just said, I resigned, and we could have been done with that. I don't think we need to watch her do her resignation email. It feels very season 3, right? Like, that's very early production and storytelling where you need to spoon feed it and show us, like, that type of stuff. It's not interesting. Like, just have the conversation you've been saying for years you wanted to resign. Okay, you finally resigned. Boom. Great. I'm trying to find space in the office. Let's move on your next venture. But that distracted me, right? So she's doing this email. Not only is it just an email, but I'm looking at the formatting of it. It's not even justified. It's just like typed out into 2 little paragraphs. And it's not even like on a Microsoft Word document. It's like, girl, you're a professor, right? You couldn't even get on Microsoft Word and do a little dear to return to sender something line sincerely, like just this plain out email. I just wasn't buying that it was authentic. So that distracted me and I was ready to move on. So I hadn't known that we were getting this season. I don't know if I overlooked it or just didn't really pay too much attention. But it's nice to see Karen with like a group of friends, and I don't really know how long it's gonna last. But it's nice to see 2 friends kind of brought in on, or affiliates of, not I want to say friends of to like be weird about the title of them, but like affiliates of Karen come in some capacity on the show. So, like we talked about earlier, we've got Viv, we got Stacy. A lot about this scene, somebody characterized it on Twitter and they were like, there was a little bit of mess, not like deep, nasty mess, but maybe like a little bit of just mixy mess between Stacy and Karen because they kept clocking each other's tea at the place. So I'm like, maybe that's what it is. For me, though, of course, because like I said, I'm looking through a lens of, is this overproduced? It felt a little scripted because the way that Karen even brings up the fact that Stacy doesn't have on a ring, I don't know how natural it would be for Karen to have noticed that. I don't know how natural it would be for anybody to have noticed that. So it could have been that she was just being messy, or it could have been pretty scripted just to get us into the conversation, introductory conversation about the fact that Stacey is getting a divorce. But, we get some quick facts about Stacey. Thanks, Karen, whether it was scripted or not. I'm going to lean towards scripted. She's saying she lived in Philly for a while. She was doing QVC. She's not doing QVC anymore. I'd like to know why. Maybe because she wanted to join the show. I don't know, but I guess we'll get into that later. Probably not. But, she leaves there, and then she's had this husband for some time. I don't know how long, I forgot. But they've been separated for a year now. So if they've been separated for a year, now I'm coming back around to it. I'm feeling like Karen would have known that if that's her friend. And she's been separated for a year, you probably would have known that. So now I'm definitely on, it feels scripted that they talked about it, but okay. But then the second part of that is, Stacey says, oh my gosh, this is weird because she and Viv are drinking champagne, I assume it was, I can't remember. And she's like, is it weird that we're drinking around you? I have 2 points to that. A, it felt scripted. And B, I'm I'm not of the opinion, and it's kind of fresh on me because I'm watching Orange County and the whole thing with Shannon. I'm not of the opinion that DUI means that you can't drink. I think DUI means that you can't drink and drive. So I don't understand when people get DUIs why the first thing to go to is, are they still drinking? Well, yes. Like, yeah, they probably are. But are they still drinking and driving? I think is the issue. Now, what I think it is people conflate drinking and driving with having a drinking problem. And both of those things could be true. And they could play off of each other. But I don't think that that's an automatic thing. So I think if we're discussing, hey, you shouldn't be drinking and driving, let that be one topic. And then if it's, hey, you have a drinking problem, let that be one topic. If your problem is that you're drinking and driving, let's stop drinking and driving, but that doesn't mean stop drinking. If your problem is that you have a drinking problem, let's stop drinking. Point blank, period. And if your problem is both, let's just cut it out. So, as far as I know, what we're discussing with Karen Huger is that she has a problem with drinking and driving. So, Karen should stop drinking and driving, but I'm not currently of the opinion that she should not drink. So, that's where I stand on that for future notice. Interestingly enough, and this is to my point, Karen says she's not drinking because she's on meds, but she will be back to drinking. I think the meds are because she says she messed up her hip and her ankle or something like that, so I'm going to assume that that's what those meds are. But once she's done with that, she's going to be back drinking, and personally, I don't have a problem with that. They talked briefly about the fact that, Giselle's having this Hatitude party. I will say, again, trying to watch with fresh eyes, giving myself reminders, so I'm going to give y'all the reminders as I'm reviewing, because I am intentionally trying to give this show a fresh start and a fresh pair of eyes. Don't like Giselle. But, and I will say it's from a point of, I used to like Giselle in the beginning of this series. And then she got to a point where she really just didn't bother me. It wasn't a yay or nay for me. And then it got to a point where she was really disgusting me and really turned me off. So that's been our trajectory. So I'm at a point where I'm just like, but, I do feel like it is very much so like Potomac for them to have these weird theme parties and to do a fun intro for them. Do I think that it can be elevated now and they don't need to use the same formula? Sure. But I guess in a place where we are trying to start fresh, let's give us something that we know. Let's call back to something that we know. And then let's push the idea forward. So in the event that that's what we're doing, fine. Giselle, who nobody likes, is having a Hatitude party, which is interesting for Karen, who is somebody that's not really her friend, which is also interesting. But she's having it. Ashley pulls up. Ashley does awful with the wigs. Like, I'm not sure what happened with her whole natural hairstyle thing. Maybe it's just a lot of work to have to do. But if you're going to go the wig route, they can't sit on top of your head. A, the lace can't be visible. B, that part needs to be parted. C, and the synthetic of it all is very jarring. And I'll stop there for now. It's interesting to hear Giselle say that she's all about peace these days. But I can also understand it from a standpoint of, she says she lost her father. And a lot of people say, that puts things into perspective for people, and it kind of calms them down and softens them. So I can imagine that to be true. I just think she really jumped out the window when she says she's all about peace these days, because I don't know that's something in her wheelhouse. Jacqueline is back. I heard a little bit of a murmur that Jacqueline was a mess this season, and we do see a little bit of it in this scene. I think I like Jacqueline. I'm not a yay or nay on Jacqueline. She's never really bothered me. I get confused about where she stands in the whole Mia of it all. I think that's the primary dynamic that I would like to understand. And I don't really see a dynamic with her with the group. So maybe if she has a possibility to come in this season and stand on her own and we see where she falls in the group, that can be interesting. I thought she looked pretty though. We also meet Mia's friend Jazzy, her fiance, I believe, what he plays for. I'm not a sports girl, but he plays for that team that Taylor Swift's man plays for. What is that? The Chiefs, the Kansas City Chiefs, and they just won the Super Bowl or whatever. So cool. That's cool. I also noticed that Mia looks an absolute mess in her confessional. That little blonde with the Wednesday Addams thing, like, she looks egregious, literally. And like, they had the premiere party, she had another blonde wig. Mia, girl, and I like Mia blonde, been a blonde, it don't work for you. Stop. I also thought it was so interesting that everybody has brown skinned friends this season. Everybody got a brown skinned friend. Where these brown skinned friends been at? Obviously, we can't put everybody on TV, but damn, we done met like four new women this episode. And they're all brown skinned women, gorgeous women. But where have they been? However, I did clock that the only one without a brown skinned friend still is Giselle. Now look, still again in the spirit of watching it with a fresh pair of eyes, I'm watching it, and this is before Karen. I just want to know this is before Karen, Viv, and Stacy get there, and I'm watching, and I'm like this. You know how you're anticipating. I'm like, somebody's missing. Like I'm looking for people. I'm even looking at the table and I'm like, it feels empty. Not even from a show standpoint, not even from this specific group standpoint. It feels like even if you go somewhere, like you've been to a birthday dinner before and it hasn't really officially started up, it felt like we were waiting on something. And I'm like, no, for the most part, this is the cast. And I'm like, yeah, we are missing Karen. And you know whatever Stacy and Viv are gonna bring to this season, whatever capacity. Yes, Stacy is a housewife, but we don't know how much she contributes yet. So that's what I'm saying. So yes, we're missing, but I'm like, are they enough to kind of fill that gap that I'm feeling? That's all. Right before Karen comes in, Jacqueline seems almost extremely eager to mention that Karen had called her sometime like recent, and I guess she had kiki to Mia about it. That's her friend, and Mia's the one that jumps out and says yes, and she was drunk. And Jacqueline kind of scales it back a taint, and she's like, she seemed tipsy. She didn't seem like her regular self, so I don't know. And they kind of stay off of that. So, Karen comes in. To me, she looks fab. And, you know, Giselle immediately starts with, you know, handing out the drink menu. There's a non-alcoholic drink called the non-alcoholic Grand Dame, which is obviously petty and messy, and I could appreciate that. I'm like, okay, because I don't want to see the fake friendship thing. Like, if y'all are still going to be messy, just still be messy. So that I appreciated. Points for production there and points for the ladies there. Karen also clocked her as being messy Giselle in her confessional. So I'm like, if we still get this real authentic banter and it's not just them trying to play nice with each other, I'll take it. Up until this point, I will say the episode is not extremely exciting. It's exciting to see them back and it's exciting to see a fresh start. But I said it to say this is when we finally kind of get it started. So we've got the group. Still feels a little bit empty to me, I'm going to be honest. But Giselle gets it started and she's like, well, you know, Karen, the ladies had a lot of questions that they were asking about you. And Karen's like, well, ask me. I'm here. Any questions? And I lived for that. Jacqueline starts off and her tone is more so of, we're glad you're okay, I guess. And Stacy butts in and she's like, well, I don't really know, like, whose business it is. Like, I don't really think we're here to judge, right? So I don't really know why it's much of a topic of conversation. And I would have to agree with Stacey. And it's nice to see, obviously, she came in as a, you know, she's Karen's friend. So it's nice to see her, like, stand up and say something about that. And then it feel like, you know, the girls love to jump, but depending on the woman, the girls love to jump and be like, oh, you're her puppet, and your puppet, and da-da-da-da-da. But I think that that's just genuinely how she felt. And a lot of people thought that this was interesting on Twitter. I didn't necessarily, it didn't perk my ears up much. But Karen does say, you know, she really doesn't care about the judgment, but she feels as though this is the opportunity to see who her real friends are, like who's really going to champion behind Karen. And, you know, she doesn't want anybody fake around her. And so, you know, I think that that's a valid point. Honestly, like, to me, that didn't feel like, and I agree that Karen can deflect. But to me, that didn't feel like a deflection, right? I thought that was valid. Like, this is when you're going to see who's in your corner and who's being a mess, you know? So that didn't bother me too much. I did think that, though I thought the theme of the party was lame, I did think that the way that it was going, you know, when Giselle would hand out the hats and then they would have a talk or an update with that specific lady, I liked the structure of that. So whoever came up with that, cheers to you. So we talked about Karen. She gets to a point where she gives a hat to Ashley. I was like, oh my God, thank God somebody's putting something over that wig, but it didn't help too much. They talk about GNA and the fact that they're now doing GNA Fusion, which I'm still not clear on what that is. I don't think anybody's clear on what GNA is. I love that they showed the website with 6 products that just look atrocious. So I don't know what GNA Fusion is, and I like that we at least got some comedic relief from Wendy in there, because also we need to watch and see what's happening with this Wendy and Giselle relationship and see how fake and phony that might turn out to be. So it's refreshing to see that she still has some smoke for Giselle, at least in the first episode, and we'll see what happens. I could appreciate 100% Giselle kind of calling back to her roots and she's being messy with the whole Mia thing. It's always going to take me back to the fact that Mia was really jumping on the bandwagon of Giselle and Robin, but they've never like stayed off of her neck. So that's interesting to me that she keeps trying to fit in with that. She was always trying to fit in with them. Robin's not here anymore. She was always trying to fit in with them, and they would always read her. So it's continuing, and I can appreciate that. But she gives her this hat. I forgot the name of the hat, but she alludes to, the fact that Mia is pimping out these two men, because it is a little bit atrocious. And I'm glad that we're not going to normalize this for story. We're really going to get on her neck about it. I can definitely watch a full season about that. And, Mia says, I'm dating this new guy. It's serious. It's not like that. This ain't that. And Giselle, another jab that I can appreciate. She's like, well, have you shared him with Jacqueline yet? I thought that was hilarious. I will take that. If Giselle stays on this route, I'll go along with her. And it was interesting to hear Jacqueline kind of chime in, and she has a voice, so this is nice. And she's just like, I think that Ink is better for Mia than Gordon was. Like, I think the whole thing with Gordon was just like a business thing. And Giselle's like, do you think Gordon knew that? She said, I think they both knew that. And Mia doesn't dissent or disagree, so I thought that was interesting. And I honestly, for me, what carried the scene was Stacey being so... I thought it was just fun to see a fresh face there and to see them reacting in real time and being shocked by all of these things. She was flabbergasted. So I thought that was fun, because we're not just rehashing the things for the viewers that we've already seen, and we're just like, okay, we get it, we know. And then we're actually getting somebody new, and we're seeing them like experience it for the first time and react in real time. And we're also getting real opinions from Giselle and Karen, and I'm like, okay, this will work for me. Is it super exciting? No, but it's working. Also, an interesting point, again, I think it goes to the natural quirk of Potomac and the cast that we're used to. And Mia's talking about how they're all a big happy family, which I think is going to break down this season. It'll be interesting to watch. If that's not the route we're going, turn it off already. But, she talks about how she and Ink have washed and folded Gordon's laundry for him. So, if we can kind of break down these lies that Mia likes to tell this season, again, I'll be here for that. If not, we're going to have an interesting season of reviews. I literally wrote in my notes, Stacey gagging at all of these topics is so funny. Like, for real.
Oh my gosh.
What? They have no boundaries. This is a lot for a hat party. I'm just saying.
This brings me to the very end of it. Like, I'm just happy with the realism of it all. Like, she's having this conversation, Mia is, and it's very fluff, trying to act like everything's fine. And Karen's like, well, girl, I'm concerned, because, like, you really put this out there, and it has so much to do with your kids, and it's being plastered all over social media, and, like, they're not protected. Like, I don't feel like you protected your children, and I just cannot disagree with Karen. I don't think she said it from a nasty standpoint. I think she's being goddamn real. Like, it's weird the way that Mia just uses her family for a story and has done it for seasons, and it's so dramatized or dramatized, whatever the word is, and it's just overly done. Like, Mia is something amiss as it pertains to Mia. And I do appreciate, again, it didn't feel like being nasty or like butting in or like ganging up, but nobody else is saying it, and Giselle chimes in like, yeah, girl, I don't feel like you went above and beyond to protect your children. She said, I think specifically, I don't think that you protected them at all costs. And I think that that's correct. And Mia does get sad, and obviously she's defending herself, and she's saying stuff that highlights the fact that Mia's feet don't touch the ground. Like, Mia doesn't touch much grass, and I don't think that she has a lot of self-awareness, because she's bringing up things like, my kids are good, they're happy, we do this, we do that, they're fine. There's other stuff beneath the surface that you just may not ever really know, right? Stuff that they don't even really know, because they're kids, but they're being exposed to it. It's probably not affecting them now, but you have no idea what's going to happen in the future, right? And it's the fact that damage is already done. So I don't really have to talk about the fact of where you started it, but you're keeping it going this season, and you're normalizing it, right? And you're making it your storyline again. Like, that's even further damage that can happen to these children while going through a divorce with their father, while he's living in a separate place, but y'all in the same building. Like, that has to all be very traumatizing. And I know trauma is a big thing and a big word, but there are levels to trauma. So there definitely can be a piece of trauma to that. That has to be traumatizing and jarring and confusing to children. And you're not making it any better by putting it all over the media and all over TV. So I just cannot disagree with Karen and Giselle on this one. I do appreciate and understand where Wendy's coming from, and I think that that's a level of realism too, for Wendy to say it's just a lot, like it's her children. We're mothers, we have to realize it is a lot. But I don't disagree with them saying it, and I'm happy that they did. And even in Mia getting emotional after, I can imagine her feeling emotional about it, but again, I just don't think that Mia is really tapped into, I don't think she cares. Right? So I don't really buy the tears. They didn't really seem real to me, to be honest. I don't think she cares. I'm gonna be honest. And it kind of makes her sound like a monster to view it that way. And I don't believe that Mia is a monster. I just think that attention is a huge thing for her. And again, I don't think that reality is a big thing for her. She also just kind of approaching it from an obtuse standpoint, because they did talk about the fact that, you know, she obviously stepped out on her marriage before it was over, just like Gorda said. And she's not realizing, she knows that she did it, but she's defending it and normalizing it. And she's like, well, did you want me to stay in a marriage that was abusive? Nobody said that, babe. Everybody's simply saying, end your marriage before you move on and do some sneaky linking and do some weird stuff, because that's why we are here today. And, you know, she's still defending it. So Mia doesn't get it. And I don't think she's putting on an act there. I think she truly does not get it. So I can appreciate, again, the realism of people around her clocking, this don't look right. So that's a part of the show that I feel like is not being overproduced. And if we're going to go that route, I'll take it. Because I don't think it's nasty. I think it's pure honesty. And I think that's what the viewers are saying as well. Was it entertaining last season, even though it happened on the last episode, right? The whole thing with her and Gordon, it did kind of, I won't say save the season, but it gave the season some points. But it's like, it is very messy, and it shouldn't become the thing. And I think that Mia's making it the thing because that's what gets her the attention. And so bystanders, I don't think we should look at it for the sake of entertainment. We should be like, hey, that's weird. And so I'm glad we're doing that. The premiere was a premiere. I missed Kiana. I would like to see what she brings, because I just feel like, I don't know, we'll talk about her when she gets there. But I just feel like the cast feels like there's some holes. And it was the first episode, we'll give it a chance, but it feels like there are some holes. But yeah, I'm happy to be back. I'm excited to see what happens, and we'll keep on following. So I'll see y'all in the next one.